The moment I heard Kalia laugh and say I'd never choose him, everything changed. Not just my night, not just my week. Everything. The sound cut through the crowded room at Murphy's bar like a blade, sharp and final. Her friend Jessica had been teasing her about when I might propose, and instead of deflecting or changing the subject, Kalia threw back her head and delivered those 5 words that would haunt me for the next month. I was standing maybe 10 feet away, holding 2 drinks I'd just bought for us, watching her animated conversation with the group of friends she'd insisted we meet. The music was loud, the Friday night crowd was thick, but somehow those words reached me with crystal clarity. The room didn't actually go silent, that only happens in movies, but for me, everything else faded to background noise. I'd never choose him. Not, we're not ready, not, it's complicated, not even, mind your own business. Just a flat, cruel dismissal of 3 years together. 3 years of shared apartments, joint bank accounts, and me funding her startup dreams. 3 years of listening to her compare me to her ex-boyfriends, always coming up short in her stories about Derek the musician or Brad the personal trainer. I set both drinks on the nearest table and walked out. No dramatic exit, no scene. I just left. My phone started buzzing before I reached my car. Kalia's name flashed on the screen 6 times during the 10-minute drive home. I let every call go to voicemail. When I pulled into our driveway, the phone rang again. "Rhett, where did you go?" Her voice was shaky, uncertain. "People said you just left. What's wrong?" I sat in my Honda Civic, engine still running, looking at the house we'd been sharing for 8 months. The mortgage was in my name. The utilities were in my name. Even the internet bill that let her run her nightlife PR business was in my name. "I'm respecting your words," I said, and hung up. The next hour was the most productive 60 minutes of my life. As a logistics analyst for Peterson Freight, I'm good with details, timelines, and moving pieces efficiently. Those skills translated well to dismantling a relationship. First, I changed all the passwords. Bank accounts, streaming services, the shared cloud storage where she kept her client files. Then I called our landlord and explained that Kalia would be moving out, effective immediately. Since the lease was solely in my name, this was perfectly legal. I offered to pay an early termination fee to avoid any complications. Next, I removed her from my car insurance policy. Another phone call, another 5 minutes. The customer service rep was surprisingly helpful when I explained I was ending a domestic partnership. The startup funding was trickier, but not impossible. 6 months ago, I'd invested $12,000 in her PR company, Nightlife Networks. The paperwork was clear. I was a 51% partner with the right to withdraw my investment with 30 days' notice. I drafted the withdrawal letter while sitting at our kitchen table, printed it on our shared printer, and emailed it to her business account. By the time Kalia came home 2 hours later, I'd moved all her belongings to the front porch and changed the locks. I'd also transferred our joint savings, my direct deposits for the past year, into my personal account. Perfectly legal, since both our names were on it. She pounded on the door for 20 minutes, alternating between tears and threats. I sat in the living room, drinking a beer and listening to her promises to explain everything. When she finally stopped, I called out through the door. "The lease transfer paperwork is with your stuff. You've got until Sunday to find somewhere else to store it." "Rhett, please, let me explain. It wasn't what it sounded like." Actually, it was exactly what it sounded like. You made your choice clear. The pounding started again, but I'd already moved to the back of the house. I had work to do. See, walking out of that bar was just the opening move. Over the next 3 weeks, I discovered exactly how deep Kalia's betrayal ran, and more importantly, how many people in our social circle had been laughing behind my back. The shared iPad we used for Netflix had automatically synced her text messages for months. Reading through them was like getting a masterclass in manipulation and cruelty. There were messages to Jessica. "Rhett's so boring. He thinks tracking freight shipments makes him interesting. I'm only with him because he pays for everything. Messages to her sister. He keeps hinting about marriage. Can you imagine? I'd rather pass alone. And the worst ones, to her ex, Derek. Remember when you said I was settling? You were right. Rhett's like a human savings account with no personality. But the real revelation came when I found the group chat called Kalia's Charity Case. 7 people I'd considered friends, including Jessica and Kalia's cousin Marnie, had been sharing screenshots of my social media posts and making jokes about my clothes, my job, even my car. Marnie had started the group 6 months ago with the message, "Who wants to bet how long before Kalia dumps the logistics loser?" They'd been running a betting pool on our relationship. The current odds favored a breakup before Christmas. I screenshot everything before changing the iPad password. Monday morning, I went to work like nothing had happened. Peterson Freight operates out of a converted warehouse on the industrial side of town, and my cubicle sits in the corner where I can see the loading docks through a grimy window. It's not glamorous work, but it pays well, and I'm good at it. Managing supply chains requires the same skills I was about to apply to managing my social life: attention to detail, strategic thinking, and perfect timing. My co-worker Mike Chen stopped by my desk around 10 a.m. Mike's been at Peterson for 15 years and has the kind of blue-collar wisdom that comes from watching people make the same mistakes over and over. "You look like someone who got good news and bad news at the same time," he said, settling into the chair beside my desk. "Something like that. Want to talk about it?" I considered my options. Mike was solid, trustworthy, and completely outside Kalia's social circle. More importantly, his wife Jennifer was connected to half the women in our neighborhood through her book club and yoga classes. "Kalia and I broke up this weekend." "Sorry to hear that. She seemed nice." "She seemed a lot of things." Mike waited for more details, but I kept working on my shipping manifests. After a few minutes, he started to leave, then turned back. "You know, Jennifer mentioned something weird last week. She ran into Kalia at the grocery store, and Kalia was with some guy Jennifer didn't recognize. They were acting pretty friendly for someone who was supposed to be shopping for her sick boyfriend." I looked up from my computer. "When was this?" "Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. Jennifer said she almost came over to say hi, but something felt off about the whole situation." I'd been home sick with food poisoning Tuesday and Wednesday. Kalia had volunteered to handle all the shopping and errands. She'd even brought me soup and acted concerned about my health. "Did Jennifer get a good look at the guy?" "Tall, dark hair, drove a red pickup truck. Ring any bells?" It rang several bells. Derek, the ex-boyfriend musician, drove a red Ford F-150. The same Derek who'd been receiving those nostalgic text messages about how right he'd been about me. "Thanks for letting me know." "No problem." "And Rhett?" "Jennifer's book club meets Thursday nights at our house. 12 women, all with strong opinions about relationships. Just saying." Mike was offering me something valuable: access to the neighborhood gossip network. In a town like ours, reputation was currency, and I was about to make a significant deposit. That evening, I drove to Derek's apartment complex. Sure enough, there was the red F-150 parked outside Building C. I didn't confront anyone or cause a scene. I just took photos of the truck, the license plate, and the apartment number. Then I drove to the Starbucks across the street and waited. At 8:47 p.m., Kalia emerged from the building. She was wearing the black dress I'd bought her for her birthday, the one she claimed was too nice for casual occasions. Derek followed her out, and they spent 5 minutes kissing goodbye like teenagers before she got into her Honda Accord and drove away. I followed her to Marnie's apartment, where she was apparently staying since I'd changed the locks. The building was one of those converted Victorian houses with thin walls and poor soundproofing. I parked across the street and called her number. "Rhett? Oh my God, I've been trying to reach you all week." "I know, I've been busy. Listen, we need to talk. I can explain everything about Friday night. I was drunk, and Jessica was being pushy, and I just said something stupid." "Where are you right now?" "At Marnie's. Why?" Just curious. Are you planning to stay there long? Until we work things out. Rhett, I miss you. I miss us. Can we please just talk? Through Marnie's living room window, I could see two silhouettes moving around. One was definitely Kalia, gesturing animatedly as she talked. The other had to be Marnie, probably listening to every word of our conversation. I think we're done talking, Kalia, but I appreciate the honesty. What do you mean? I mean, I'm respecting your choice. You said you'd never choose me, so I'm making it easy for you. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. And based on your activities this week, I think you've been pretty clear about your priorities for a while now. There was a long pause. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller, more careful. What activities? Have a good night, Kalia. I hung up and drove home, already planning my next move. The thing about logistics is that timing is everything. Ship too early and your cargo sits in expensive storage. Ship too late and you miss your delivery window. The same principle applied to social revenge. I needed to let the story build naturally before delivering the decisive blow. Wednesday morning, I stopped by Mike's desk with a coffee and a casual question. Is Jennifer's book club still meeting tomorrow night? Every Thursday at 7. Why? I might have some information that would interest them, about Kalia and why we really broke up. Mike leaned back in his chair and studied my face. What kind of information? The kind that explains why someone would laugh when asked about marriage, then spend the week playing house with her ex-boyfriend. Jesus, Rhett, you sure you want to go down that road? I'm sure I want people to know the truth. Kalia's been telling everyone I'm some kind of controlling boyfriend who couldn't handle her independence. I think the facts tell a different story. Mike nodded slowly. Jennifer's going to love this. She never liked Kalia anyway. Said something was off about how she talked about you. Smart woman. The smartest. What do you need from me? Just an introduction. I'll handle the rest. Thursday evening, I showed up at Mike's house with a bottle of wine and a folder full of printed screenshots. Jennifer answered the door with a knowing smile. Mike told me you might stop by. Come on in. The book club was exactly what I'd expected. 12 women between 30 and 50, all holding wine glasses and looking at me with the kind of curiosity that meant they'd already been briefed on the situation. Jennifer made quick introductions, then gestured for me to take the empty chair in the center of their circle. So, said a woman named Carol, Mike mentioned you had some news about your ex-girlfriend. I do. But first, I want to be clear that I'm not here to trash talk anyone. I'm just tired of being painted as the bad guy when I'm the one who got cheated on. That got their attention. 12 pairs of eyes focused on me with laser intensity. Cheated on? Asked Jennifer. I opened my folder and pulled out the first screenshot. This is from last Tuesday when I was home sick. Kalia told me she was going grocery shopping. I handed the photo to Carol, who studied it and passed it along. It showed Kalia and Derek kissing in the grocery store parking lot, timestamp clearly visible. She was shopping all right, said a woman named Susan. Just not for groceries. The group murmured appreciatively. I pulled out the next set of screenshots. These are text messages from our shared iPad. They go back about 6 months. For the next 20 minutes, I walked them through the evidence. The betting pool, the group chat calling me a charity case, the messages to Derek about how she was only with me for financial security, the cruel jokes about my appearance and personality. By the time I finished, the room was silent except for the occasional gasp or muttered curse word. This is horrible, said Jennifer. Rhett, I'm so sorry. The worst part, I continued, is that half our friend group knew about it. They were actively participating in the humiliation. Which friends? Asked Carol, pen already in hand. I gave them names. Jessica, who'd started the conversation that led to Kalia's public rejection. Marnie, who'd created the betting pool. Tom and Sarah, who'd been feeding information to the group chat. Even Brad, who'd been telling people I was emotionally abusive, because I'd asked Kalia to contribute to household expenses. "We know all these people," said Susan. "Jessica's daughter is in my son's class. Marnie works at the bank where I have my mortgage." "Small town," I said. "Very small town," agreed Jennifer, "and we talk to a lot of people." I stood up and collected my screenshots. I'm not asking anyone to do anything. I just wanted people to know the truth before Kalia's version becomes the official story. "What's her version?" asked Carol. "That I'm a controlling boyfriend who couldn't handle her success. That I threw her out without warning because she wouldn't commit to marriage. That I'm trying to ruin her business out of spite." "And the real version?" "The real version is that I respected her choice. She said she'd never choose me, so I made it easy for her to choose someone else." Jennifer walked me to the door while the other women stayed behind, already deep in animated conversation. "They're going to spread this story everywhere," she warned. "Are you prepared for that?" "I'm counting on it." "What about Kalia? She's going to know it came from you." I thought about the 3 years I'd spent listening to her compare me unfavorably to other men, the months of secret mockery, the betting pool on our relationship. "Good," I said. Friday morning, my phone started buzzing early. Text messages from numbers I didn't recognize, friend requests on social media, even a call from Kalia's sister asking if we could talk. Word was spreading faster than I'd anticipated. The first direct confrontation came at lunch. I was grabbing a sandwich at Murphy's Deli when Jessica walked in. She saw me immediately and marched over to my table, face flushed with anger. "You snake," she said, loud enough for the entire restaurant to hear. "How dare you spread lies about Kalia?" I looked up from my turkey club and smiled. "Which part was a lie, Jessica? The screenshots of your messages or the photos of her with Derek?" "You had no right to share private conversations. You had no right to mock me in private conversations. But here we are." Jessica glanced around the restaurant, suddenly aware that everyone was listening. She lowered her voice, but kept the aggressive tone. "Kalia made one mistake. She doesn't deserve to have her life ruined over it." "One mistake?" I pulled out my phone and scrolled to a screenshot. "This is from March. Rhett bought me flowers today. So pathetic. Derek never had to buy my affection." "That's not one mistake, Jessica. That's 6 months of systematic cruelty." She was venting to friends. Everyone complains about their relationships. Everyone doesn't run betting pools on when their boyfriend will get dumped. Everyone doesn't create group chats specifically to mock their partner's appearance and personality. Jessica's face went pale. She hadn't known I'd seen the group chat. "How did you—" "Shared iPad. Amazing how technology works when you're not careful about your digital footprint." She stood there for a moment, opening and closing her mouth like a fish. Finally, she found her voice. "You're ruining her business. Her clients are canceling because of the rumors. Her clients are canceling because they don't want to work with someone who lacks basic integrity. That's not my fault. She loved you, Rhett. In her own way, she really did love you." I took a bite of my sandwich and chewed slowly before responding. "No, Jessica. She loved my bank account. She loved having someone to pay her bills while she figured out what she really wanted. She loved having a safety net while she explored other options. But she never loved me." Jessica turned and walked out without another word. I finished my sandwich in peace, noting how the other customers kept glancing my way with expressions ranging from sympathy to admiration. That afternoon, Marnie called. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "No, we don't." "Yes, we do. Meet me at Murphy's bar at 6. Same place this whole mess started. I'm not interested in whatever damage control you're planning. I'm not planning damage control. I'm planning to apologize." That was unexpected. For what? For all of it. The betting pool was my idea. The group chat was my idea. I convinced Kalia that you were just a placeholder until someone better came along. I sat back in my office chair, phone pressed to my ear. Why? Because I was jealous. You treated her better than any guy I've ever dated treated me. You were stable and kind and actually cared about her future. I couldn't stand watching her have something I'd never had. So you sabotaged it. So I sabotaged it. And now I feel like shit, and Kalia's life is falling apart and everyone in town thinks I'm a terrible person. You are a terrible person, Marnie. I know. That's why I want to apologize, in person. Please. I thought about it for a moment. An apology wouldn't change anything, but it might provide some closure. 6 o'clock. Murphy's Bar. You buy the first round. Deal. Murphy's Bar on a Friday evening was packed with the usual crowd of office workers and blue-collar guys unwinding after a long week. I arrived exactly at 6 and found Marnie already at a corner table, 2 beers waiting. She looked terrible, dark circles under her eyes, hair unwashed, the kind of appearance that suggested she'd been having a rough week. Thanks for coming, she said as I sat down. Thanks for the beer. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 3 years of friendship and betrayal hanging between us. Finally, Marnie spoke. I know you hate me. I don't hate you. Hate requires more emotional investment than I'm willing to make. That's worse than hate. Yes, it is. She took a long drink of beer and stared at the table. Kalia doesn't know I'm here. Where is she? Derek's apartment. She moved in Wednesday after you had her stuff removed from my place. I'd arranged for a moving company to collect Kalia's belongings from Marnie's apartment and deliver them to a storage unit. The cost was deducted from her final business partnership payout. How's that working out for? About as well as you'd expect. Derek's place is a shithole and he's already complaining about having a live-in girlfriend. Turns out the fantasy was better than the reality. Usually is. Marnie looked up from her beer. She wants to talk to you. She thinks she can explain everything and make it right. There's nothing to explain, and there's definitely nothing to make right. She says she never meant for it to go this far, that she was just confused about her feelings. Marnie, I saw the text messages. She wasn't confused. She was calculating. There's a difference. What if she breaks up with Derek? What if she admits she made a mistake? I leaned back in my chair and studied Marnie's face. She was serious. She actually thought there was a path back from this. Let me ask you something, I said. If you found out your boyfriend had been secretly mocking you to his friends for 6 months, calling you pathetic and boring, running a betting pool on when he'd dump you, would you take him back if he apologized? That's different. How is it different? Because you're a guy. Guys are supposed to be tougher about this stuff. I almost laughed. So I'm supposed to have lower standards because I'm male? I'm supposed to accept disrespect because men are expected to put up with more abuse? That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. And it's exactly the kind of thinking that let this situation go on for months without anyone telling me what was happening. Marnie finished her beer and signaled the waitress for another round. So what happens now? Now Kalia lives with the consequences of her choices. She chose Derek over me, chose mockery over respect, chose short-term excitement over long-term stability. She got exactly what she wanted. And you? What do you get? I thought about my empty house, my simplified finances, my social circle reduced by half. Then I thought about the relief of not walking on eggshells, not wondering what cruel joke was being made behind my back, not funding someone else's dreams while my own were dismissed as boring. I get my self-respect back. The waitress brought our second round, and Marnie tried a different approach. People are saying you're being vindictive, that sharing those screenshots was cruel. People are welcome to their opinions. Don't you care what they think? I care what honest people think. I don't care what hypocrites and enablers think. That's half the town, Rhett. Then half the town can go to hell. Marnie stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. You're not the same person you were 2 weeks ago. No, I'm not. 2 weeks ago, I was someone who accepted disrespect because I thought it was normal. Someone who funded other people's dreams while ignoring my own needs. Someone who believed that being nice was more important than being respected. And now? Now I'm someone who knows the difference between love and exploitation. We finished our beers in relative silence. As we prepared to leave, Marnie made one final attempt. She really is sorry, for all of it. I'm sure she is. Sorry she got caught. Sorry she lost her financial support. Sorry her reputation is damaged. But I doubt she's sorry for the months of mockery and betrayal. Those were choices, not accidents. So there's no chance? No possibility of forgiveness? I stood up and put on my jacket. Marnie, if someone spent 6 months systematically humiliating you, would you trust them with your heart again? She didn't answer, which was answer enough. The weekend passed quietly. I cleaned the house, organized my finances, and started planning some home improvement projects I'd been putting off. Without Kalia's expenses, I had significantly more disposable income. It was amazing how much money I'd been spending on someone who viewed me as a temporary convenience. Monday morning brought an unexpected visitor. I was getting ready for work when my doorbell rang at 7 a.m. Through the peephole, I saw Kalia standing on my front porch, holding a coffee cup and looking nervous. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. "We need to talk," she said. "No, we don't." "Rhett, please, 5 minutes, that's all I'm asking." She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes were wrinkled, and she had the kind of exhausted appearance that suggested she hadn't been sleeping well. "You've got 3 minutes," I said, stepping onto the porch and closing the door behind me. I made a mistake. A huge, terrible mistake. I was confused and scared, and I handled everything wrong. "Okay. That's it? Just okay? What do you want me to say, Kalia? That I forgive you? That we can start over? That 6 months of systematic mockery was just a misunderstanding? I want you to give me a chance to make it right." "How? How do you make right the betting pool on our relationship? How do you make right the group chat where your friends mocked my appearance? How do you make right telling Derek that I was just a human savings account?" Her face crumpled. "You weren't supposed to see those messages. That's your defense? That I wasn't supposed to find out about the cruelty?" "No, that's not what I meant. I meant that those messages didn't reflect my real feelings." "They reflected your feelings perfectly. They just didn't reflect the feelings you wanted me to know about." Kalia set her coffee cup on the porch railing and wrapped her arms around herself. "I was wrong. About everything. Derek is nothing like I remembered. He's selfish and immature and completely unreliable. So you want me back because your first choice didn't work out? I want you back because I realized you were always the right choice. I was just too stupid to see it." I looked at this woman I'd loved for 3 years, this person I'd shared a bed and dreams and financial responsibilities with, and felt absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, no lingering affection. Just a mild curiosity about how she'd convinced herself that this conversation would end differently. "Your 3 minutes are up," I said. "Rhett, wait. What if I could prove that I've changed? What if I could show you that I understand what I lost?" "How would you do that?" I could publicly apologize. On social media, I could tell everyone the truth about what happened and take full responsibility." "And then what?" "And then maybe we could try again, slowly, carefully, with complete honesty this time." I almost felt sorry for her. She genuinely believed that a public apology would reset our relationship, that acknowledging her mistakes would somehow erase the months of betrayal. "Kalia, do you know what the worst part of all this was? The cheating?" "No. The cheating was just the final insult. The worst part was realizing that you never saw me as an equal partner. I was always just a supporting character in your story, someone to pay the bills while you figured out what you really wanted. That's not true. It's completely true. When your friends teased you about marriage, your immediate response wasn't to deflect or change the subject. It was to publicly reject the idea of choosing me. That wasn't a slip of the tongue, Kalia. That was your honest reaction." She started crying, which I'd expected. Kalia had always used tears as a negotiation tactic. "I know I hurt you," she sobbed. "I know I was terrible, but people can change. People can learn from their mistakes." Some people can, but change requires genuine remorse, not just regret about consequences. You're not sorry you mocked me for 6 months. You're sorry you got caught. That's not fair. Life's not fair. If it were, I would have found out about your betting pool 6 months ago instead of wasting more time and money on someone who viewed me as a joke. I turned to go back inside, but Kalia grabbed my arm. "Please," she whispered. "I have nowhere else to go. Derek kicked me out yesterday. Marnie won't return my calls. My business is falling apart because no one trusts me anymore. I need help." And there it was. The real reason for her apology tour. Not genuine remorse, but practical necessity. She wasn't sorry for betraying me. She was sorry for losing her safety net. "You should have thought about that before you decided I was just a human ATM." "I never said that." "You said I was a human savings account. Same concept, different metaphor." I gently removed her hand from my arm and stepped toward my door. "Rhett, wait! What am I supposed to do?" "The same thing millions of other adults do every day. Figure it out yourself." "I can't afford rent anywhere. I can't get new clients because everyone thinks I'm untrustworthy. I'm completely screwed." "You're experiencing the natural consequences of your choices. That's not my problem to solve." "So you're just going to let me fail? After 3 years together?" I paused with my hand on the doorknob. "Kalia, you spent 6 months systematically destroying any foundation for trust or respect in our relationship. You mocked me to your friends, cheated on me with your ex, and created a betting pool on when you dumped me. Now you want me to rescue you from the consequences of those choices? I want you to show me the same compassion I would show you. The same compassion you showed me when you were calling me pathetic behind my back?" She didn't have an answer for that. "Good luck with everything," I said, and went inside. Through the window, I watched her stand on my porch for another 5 minutes, probably hoping I'd change my mind. Eventually, she picked up her coffee cup and walked to her car. As she drove away, I felt a profound sense of relief. The conversation had confirmed what I'd already known. Kalia was sorry about her situation, not her actions. That evening, Mike stopped by my cubicle with an update from the neighborhood gossip network. "Jennifer says Kalia's been calling around, trying to find someone to loan her money for an apartment deposit. Any takers? Not so far. Turns out people are less willing to help when they know how she talks about her benefactors behind their backs." Shocking. She also tried to get her job back at that event planning company downtown. They told her they'd already heard about her reliability issues and weren't interested. I continued working on my shipping manifests, but I was listening. "The real kicker," Mike continued, "is that Derek apparently started dating someone else over the weekend. Kalia showed up at his apartment Sunday night and found another woman there. Rough week for her. Gets worse. Jennifer heard from Carol that Kalia's been telling people you stole her business investment illegally. She's threatening to sue you for the $12,000. That got my attention. I looked up from my computer. She can threaten all she wants. I have the signed partnership agreement and the withdrawal notice. Everything was done according to the contract she signed. I figured as much, but she's also claiming you hacked into her personal accounts and violated her privacy by sharing those screenshots. Shared iPad, shared cloud storage, again, perfectly legal. You might want to talk to a lawyer anyway, just to be safe." Mike was right. I spent my lunch break calling attorney offices and found one that specialized in business partnerships and digital privacy issues. The consultation fee was $200, but it was worth it for peace of mind. Attorney Sarah Martinez reviewed my documentation and gave me the news I'd expected. "Everything you did was legal," she said. "The partnership agreement clearly states your right to withdraw your investment. The shared accounts gave you legal access to the messages, and removing someone from insurance policies and bank accounts that are solely in your name is absolutely within your rights. What about her threats to sue? Empty threats. She has no legal standing. If anything, she'd be opening herself up to a harassment lawsuit by continuing to contact you after you've made it clear the relationship is over. So I'm in the clear? Completely, though I'd recommend documenting any future contact attempts, just in case she escalates to actual harassment. I paid the consultation fee and left the law office feeling better than I had in weeks. Kalia could threaten all she wanted, but the law was on my side. That weekend, I ran into Tom and Sarah at the grocery store. They'd been part of Kalia's inner circle, active participants in the group chat that had mocked me for months. When they saw me in the produce section, they tried to duck into another aisle, but I'd already spotted them. "Tom, Sarah," I called out cheerfully. "How's it going?" They had no choice but to stop and acknowledge me. Both looked uncomfortable, like children caught misbehaving. "Hey, Rhett," Tom said awkwardly. "We heard about you and Kalia." "I'm sure you did. Probably heard about it before I did, considering how involved you were in her social commentary." Sarah flushed red. "We didn't mean anything by those messages. It was just silly gossip." "Silly gossip," I repeated. "Is that what you call participating in a betting pool on my relationship?" "We never bet any money," Tom protested. "It was just a joke. A 6-month joke at my expense. While I was paying for group dinners and covering Kalia's bills, you were all laughing about what a sucker I was." "That's not how it was," Sarah said, but her voice lacked conviction. "That's exactly how it was. I have the screenshots, remember?" They stood there in uncomfortable silence, holding their shopping basket and avoiding eye contact. "Here's what I don't understand," I continued. "If you all thought I was such a loser, why did you keep hanging out with me? Why did you let me pay for drinks and dinners and event tickets?" "Because we didn't really think you were a loser," Tom said. "We were just going along with the group dynamic." "So you participated in months of mockery because of peer pressure? That's your defense?" "We're sorry, okay?" Sarah burst out. "We know it was wrong. We feel terrible about it." "Do you? Or do you feel terrible about getting caught?" Neither of them answered. "You know what the funny thing is?" I said, selecting a bag of apples and putting it in my cart. "I actually liked you guys. I thought we were friends. I thought the dinners and game nights meant something." "We were friends," Tom said. "We still could be friends." "No, Tom. Friends don't mock each other behind their backs. Friends don't participate in betting pools about each other's relationships. Friends don't call each other pathetic and boring in group chats." "We never called you pathetic," Sarah protested. "You called me a charity case and a logistics loser. You shared screenshots of my social media posts to make fun of my clothes and my car. You told Kalia she was settling by dating me." "We didn't think you'd ever find out," Tom said quietly. "And that makes it better? That you thought you could mock me indefinitely without consequences?" They didn't have an answer for that either. "Enjoy your shopping," I said, and pushed my cart toward the checkout line. Behind me, I heard Sarah whisper, "He's really changed." "Yeah," Tom replied. "He used to be so nice." I almost turned around to explain that I was still nice, to people who deserved it, but they weren't worth the effort. The next few weeks settled into a routine: work, home improvement projects, occasional dinners with Mike and Jennifer. I was sleeping better, eating better, and saving more money than I had in years. The house felt peaceful without the constant undercurrent of tension I hadn't even realized was there. Kalia tried calling a few more times, but I'd blocked her number. She sent emails to my work account until I had IT flag them as spam. She even showed up at Peterson Freight one afternoon, but security escorted her out when she couldn't provide a legitimate business reason for being there. Through the neighborhood gossip network, I heard updates on her situation. She'd moved back in with her parents in the next town over. Her PR business had officially folded after losing all its clients. She'd taken a part-time job at a retail store in the mall, a significant step down from her previous lifestyle. I felt no satisfaction in her struggles, But I felt no sympathy either. She'd made her choices with full knowledge of the potential consequences. The real test came in November, almost 2 months after our breakup. I was having dinner at Murphy's bar when Kalia walked in with Marnie. They didn't see me at first, settling into a booth on the opposite side of the restaurant. But when Kalia went to the bathroom, she spotted me on her way back to the table. She approached slowly, cautiously, like someone approaching a potentially dangerous animal. "Hello, Rhett. Kalia. How are you doing?" "Very well, thanks. You?" "I'm managing, getting by." She stood there for a moment, clearly wanting to say more but unsure how to proceed. "I heard your business picked up," she said finally. It was true. Word of mouth about my situation had somehow translated into professional opportunities. 2 small companies had hired me for freelance logistics consulting, impressed by stories of my methodical approach to problem solving. "It has." "That's good. You deserve success." "Thank you." Another pause. Then, "I also heard you're seeing someone new." That was also true, though I wasn't sure how she'd found out. Jennifer had introduced me to her friend Lisa, a divorced teacher who appreciated straightforward communication and shared expenses. We'd been on 4 dates, and I was cautiously optimistic about the potential. "I am." "Is it serious?" "It's honest. Which is all I require these days." Kalia flinched at the implication. "Rhett, I know you probably never want to see me again, but I want you to know that I learned from my mistakes. What happened between us changed me." "I hope so. Do you think you'll ever be able to forgive me?" I considered the question seriously. Forgiveness was supposed to be healing, liberating, the mature response to betrayal. But forgiveness required a foundation of respect, and I simply didn't respect Kalia anymore. "I don't think about you enough to maintain anger," I said finally. "If that counts as forgiveness, then sure." It wasn't the answer she'd wanted, but it was the honest one. "I guess that's something," she said quietly. "It's everything you're going to get." She nodded and walked back to her table. Marnie looked up as she approached, clearly eager for details about our conversation. I watched Kalia shake her head and sit down, her shoulders slumped in defeat. I finished my dinner and left without looking in their direction again. A week later, I got a text from an unknown number. "This is Marnie. Kalia's moving to Portland next month, fresh start. Thought you should know." I deleted the message without responding. Kalia's geographic location was no longer my concern. December brought the first snow and an unexpected sense of closure. I was decorating my Christmas tree, a tradition Kalia had always dismissed as too domestic, when I found myself thinking about the past year. The betrayal, the discovery, the methodical dismantling of a relationship that had never been as real as I'd believed. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. I expected it to be a delivery driver, but instead found Jessica standing on my porch, holding a wrapped package. "I know you probably don't want to see me," she said quickly, "but I wanted to give you this before Kalia leaves town." "What is it?" "Something that belongs to you. Something she should have returned months ago." I took the package but didn't open it. "What does she want in return?" "Nothing. She's not even supposed to know I'm here. I felt like you deserved to have it back." After Jessica left, I opened the package. Inside was the watch my grandfather had given me for college graduation, a vintage Omega that I'd lent to Kalia for a formal event and never gotten back. There was also a note in her handwriting. "I know this doesn't fix anything, but I wanted you to have something that was always yours. I'm sorry for everything. I hope you find someone who deserves you." I put the watch on my wrist and threw the note away. Some gestures were too little, too late to matter. On New Year's Eve, I attended a party at Mike and Jennifer's house. Lisa was there looking beautiful in a blue dress that complemented her eyes. We spent the evening talking with other couples, sharing stories and laughing at Mike's terrible jokes. When midnight arrived, Lisa kissed me gently and whispered, "Here's to honest beginnings." As I looked around the room at genuine friends, a woman who respected me, and a life built on truth rather than convenience, I realized something important. Kalia had done me a favor. Her cruelty had forced me to examine what I was willing to accept, what I deserved, and what I valued in a relationship. I'd spent 3 years with someone who saw me as a temporary solution to her problems. Now, I was building something real with someone who saw me as a permanent part of her future. The ledger was finally balanced. 6 months later, I was cleaning out my desk at work when I found a printout of one of Kalia's old messages. "Rhett's like a human savings account with no personality." I stared at it for a moment, remembering the anger and humiliation I'd felt when I first read those words. Now, they just seemed sad. Sad that someone could spend 3 years with another person and understand them so little. Sad that Kalia had been so focused on what she thought she wanted that she'd completely missed what she actually had. I crumpled up the paper and threw it in the trash, then locked my desk and headed home to Lisa, who was making dinner and probably wondering why I was late. As I drove through the familiar streets of our small town, I thought about the difference between revenge and justice. Revenge would have been trying to hurt Kalia as much as she'd hurt me. Justice was simply letting her experience the natural consequences of her choices while I built something better. I'd chosen justice, and it had chosen me back. The ledger wasn't just balanced, it was closed.